Wow. But the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. It divides power among sovereigns and among branches of government precisely so that we may resist the temptation to concentrate power in one location as an expedient solution to the crisis of the day. End quote. To the crisis of the day. What is the crisis of the day? Well, there's all sorts of them, but probably cap and trade, another crisis of the day. And of course, we're going to make sure that everybody has the right to socialize medicine because it's a crisis. And in a country such as ours, it's a right to have health care. I've been without health care before. I think I'm all right still. We can still take care of ourselves. And you know what, as far as I'm concerned, they can take back their Medicare or Medicaid too while they're at it. Take it all back. Take it back. So, and then when the state, just a real quick idea here, when the state says, and the governor and the legislature stand up and say, we're not going to participate in this stupid nationalized, socialized health care, and the federal government goes, what? And the state goes, you heard us, we're not going to. Well, we're going to cut off funds then. We won't give you any more money for your highways. And what does the state say then? Hallelujah! Because you know what? We're not sending any more money to Washington, D.C. ever again. Cut it. Yep. Cut it. So, now, real love. I've got maybe 4 or 5 minutes left, and I want you to know this is really some stuff that comes right from my heart. And first, I did a lot of research on this, and I looked how many people, how many sheriffs in the history of the United States have sued the federal government and won a case. I don't think you'll find very many. I haven't found but 2, Prince and Mack so far at this point, which, you know, okay, I hope somebody else finds some others. I really hope, because this sort of thing needs to happen more often, except without the suing part. I really, in retrospect, wish we hadn't done it. And I've learned a lot, and we achieved a lot. But I wish we had just had the sheriffs like Sheriff Nixon in Lincoln County, Montana, who said, I'm not filing with the Mack and Prince case. I'm just not going to do it. He just said no. And if we'd have had the sheriffs do that, we wouldn't have had to waste all that time and money on this, because you know why? Your sheriff and anybody else in the state who takes an oath to the Constitution doesn't need to ask permission from anybody to keep that oath. Not from the Supreme Court and not from the barber on Main Street. Does not ask permission. He doesn't. He keeps his word for you. Okay? So I got to thinking about this, and I said, well, how many people sued Bill Clinton in all the years since he was governor and then president and all that? And of course, you know, we've heard all those stories. But Prince and I were the only ones to sue him on a non-sexual matter. True story. And I'm here to tell you, that one is way true. Okay? And so I want to make sure you're awake for the ending here, okay? All right. What does a constitutional sheriff look like? And I started to study that. And I looked at one of my heroes to put this into historical perspective. And I want you to remember this, because it's what should have happened. In 1955, a constitutional sheriff, how many peace officers today, how many constitutional guards and sheriffs and deputies would have liked to have looked back at what happened to Rosa Parks and say, you know what? I would not have arrested her for failing to give up her seat to a white man. Edmund Burke said, the essence of tyranny is the enforcement of stupid laws. I don't care what else you've ever heard about Rosa Parks. Forget it. She taught us a very valuable historical lesson. What do we do with stupid laws? We get rid of them and we don't obey them. We stand firm. Was she violent? No. She risked a lot, maybe her life, to disobey that stupid law. Now, if the sheriff had been there when the bus driver got off the bus and called on the payphone and said, "Get this troublemaker off my bus, she won't get to the back." And so the sheriff tells the deputy, "Come on, I'm going to show you what we do with people like this." And the deputy thinks, this lady's in trouble. And they get on the bus and they walk up to Rosa Parks, and the sheriff goes, "Ma'am, just what seems to be the problem here?" And she looks up kind of timidly and says, "Sheriff, why can't we just be left alone?" And he goes, "You know what, Mrs. Parks? You're right. Can I sit down next to you and shake your hand?" And he shakes her hand. He says, "What you did today took a lot of courage. And you know what? Where do you get off on the bus? Where's your stop?" And she says, 2 blocks up on Elm Street. And he says, "Can I get off with you? I want to make sure you get home safely. There might be some trouble." And she goes, "Well, sure." And they get off the bus and he says, "Hey, you know what I was thinking? Do you need to take some sandwiches home for your family? It's kind of late." And she goes, "That'd be nice." And he says, "There's an all-white restaurant right there. Let's go." And now this good constitutional sheriff is teaching the whole community what we do with stupid statutes. This sheriff is a great man, great leader. And he walks in there proudly and stands as he makes sure she gets her order. And they leave and they notice an all-white water fountain. And he says, "Rosa, you might as well make it 3 for 3. And she takes a drink. And they go home. And Mr. Parks sees them walking up the steps and he goes, "Oh no, what did Rosa do now?" And he goes out there and the sheriff goes, "Calm down, it's okay, Mr. Parks. But let me ask you something. Do you have a gun in the home?" And he goes, "Yes, I sure do, a 12 gauge. He goes, "Make sure it's loaded." He says, "It is." He says, "Well, keep it close by because there might be some trouble in the town tonight. But this deputy's going to drive by your home every 15 minutes and make sure you're protected. Aren't you, deputy?" And the deputy says, "Yeah, you bet." And he says, "And make sure you tell the oncoming shift to do the same." And this is what your constitutional sheriff does today for Rosa Parks, the gun owner, or Rosa Parks, the homeschooler, or Rosa Parks, the tax protester, or Rosa Parks, the person being victimized by government, and Rosa Parks, the person who just wants to be left alone. Like constitutional sheriff should have done in Ruby Ridge and Waco and other places in this country. So, now,